Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm going to be telling you my most highly anticipated releases for January through June of 2020. So there's a lot of good stuff coming out this year, and this list is by no means complete. I'm sure I've forgotten a ton of stuff, and I did actually have to narrow this list down so this video would be of a manageable size. So this is by no means a complete list of all the books coming out in the first half of 2020. However, these are the books that I'm particularly excited for. So if I've missed any, definitely feel free to let me know, because I feel like it's really hard to keep track of new releases. So if there's anything that you're looking forward to, definitely let me know so I can add it to my own list. And as per usual with these videos that I do, these are the UK release dates because I live in the UK. So they may not match up with you if you live in the US or elsewhere in the world. So go ahead and check your own local Amazon or bookstore listings to find the dates for where these come out where you live. Okay, I have quite a lot of books to talk about, so I'm just gonna try to rattle through these really quickly, but as per usual, I do tend to ramble, especially when I get really excited about stuff. So all of these will be linked down below if you would like to learn a little bit more about what they're about. I'm not going to go too in-depth here. So starting with January, I have a few for January, and by the time this video comes out, I don't know when it's going to go up, but some of these books may already be out, which is quite exciting. So the very first one that I have here is The Shadow Saint by Gareth Hanrahan. This comes out on the 9th of January from Orbit Books. This is a book that I am lucky enough to have already read. It is the sequel to The Gutter Prayer, which was tied for #1 for my best books of 2019. They're both fantastic books. They're super weird and super unique adult fantasy fiction. If you haven't jumped on this series yet and you enjoy adult fantasy, really creative magic systems, really good characters, and amazing world building, you must jump on these books. They're so incredibly good. They're some of my favorites. So the next book that I have is Dark and Deepest, read by Anna Marie McLemore. This comes out on the 14th of January 2020 from Macmillan US. So this doesn't actually have a UK publisher. This looks amazing. This is one that I got really upset that I didn't know about earlier. I feel like it should have been on my radar. I've never read any of her books, but this is a YA historical fantasy and it sounds so good. So this book takes place in the summer of 1518. There is a strange sickness sweeping through Strasbourg. Women are dancing in the streets until they fall down dead. So there are rumors of witchcraft spreading, and suspicion turns to Lavinia and her family, and she must do unimaginable things to save the one she loves. So the story is going to connect to 5 centuries later to a character named Rosella Oliva, and she is going to be connected with a boy named Emile, and his family is the one that was blamed for the kind of dancing fever that happened 500 years ago. This sounds wonderful. This sounds absolutely amazing. It sounds like it's exactly my cup of tea. I've not read any of her books before, but I've heard really good things about them. Next up is The Unlikely Escape of Uriah Heep by H.G. Perry. This comes out on the 23rd of January from Orbit Books, and this is one I'm actually reading right now, and it is wonderful. You don't have to say studied Victorian literature like I did at university, or, you know, be particularly engrossed in classics to enjoy this book, I think. It's really, truly a book for just people who love books and the magic of reading. So this book follows 2 characters, Rob and his brother Charlie, and Rob is a very ordinary man and he enjoys his very normal life, and Charlie is a professor of English literature, and he has this incredible magical ability to pull characters out of books. So Rob doesn't love this about his brother. It would make life a lot easier if he did not do this, and so they've had some tensions in the past. However, they are realizing that there's someone else who has this ability as well, who's causing a lot of trouble in Wellington, New Zealand, where they live. So far, I'm absolutely adoring this book. It's really charming and funny, and it's just an absolute delight. And the last book that I have for January is actually one that is already out in the US and has been for a while. This is Queen of the Conquered by Case and Callender. This comes out on the 30th of January and is distributed by Orbit US, not Orbit UK. And this is one I've really been looking forward to. It's apparently a Caribbean-inspired fantasy, and it looks fantastic. So this book follows an ambitious young woman with the power to control minds who seeks vengeance against the royals who murdered her family. So Sigourney Rose is the only surviving daughter of a noble lineage, and when she was a child, her family was murdered by the island's colonizers, who massacred and enslaved generations of her people, and now she's ready to exact her revenge. This sounds great. This sounds really good. It has a beautiful cover. This book has been on my mind for ages, and I'm so excited to finally get my hands on a copy. I don't pre-order books very often anymore. I feel like I've just been burned a lot, but this is one that I did go ahead and pre-order, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it because it looks so good. So now we're moving on to February. So the very first book that I have for February is one that comes out on the 1st from Tor.com. It is Come Tumbling Down by Seanan McGuire. This is the 5th book in the Wayward Children series, which is one of my absolute favorite fantasy series. If you haven't read these books, they're just absolutely wonderful. They're a little bit, I think, hard to get your hands on because they're only published in hardcover and they're novellas, which is the stupidest thing in the world. So they're a little bit expensive, but if you can get them from your local library, they're just absolutely incredible. So basically this series follows a huge cast of characters, and each book focuses on a different person, and they are all children who have fallen down the rabbit hole, gone through a doorway into a new world, and they've had to return for whatever reason. They've been kicked out, they were forced to leave for whatever reason, and they have to kind of readjust to living in our real world. And this 5th book is going to focus again on Jack and Jill and the events that happen after the first book, Every Heart a Doorway, whereas the book Down Among the Sticks and Bones, which is the 2nd in the series, focuses on what leads up to their story that leads up to the first book. So I actually really didn't like Down Among the Sticks and Bones, that 2nd book, because I wanted it to be what this book is going to be. I wanted it to be a continuation of their story, and I just didn't like a lot of stuff that happened in that 2nd book. So I'm hoping that this will redeem their story a little bit because I love those characters in Every Heart a Doorway. It's going to be really good, I think. I have my fingers crossed. I loved the last book, In an Absent Dream, so I have very high hopes for this one. Next book on my list is one I'm so excited for. This is The Wolf of Oren-Yaro by K.S. Veloso. This comes out on the 6th of February from Orbit Books. So this book follows a woman who I'm sure lovingly has been dubbed the Bitch Queen, and she is the ruler at the very end of the War of the Wolves, which nearly tore her nation apart. And she was set up in an arranged marriage to the son of a rival clan. However, he leaves not too long after the birth of their son. We don't know why this happens, but he departs, and it kind of fractures her kingdom beyond repair. And this book picks up years later. She receives a message from her estranged husband that will bring her across the sea. So what's meant to be an effort at reconciling the past becomes an assassination attempt. Stranded in a land she doesn't know, with no idea who she can trust, Talon has to become her namesake. Oh, this looks so good. This looks absolutely amazing. It has an incredible cover. This is one that's been on my radar for an absolute age, and I cannot wait to read it. All of my friends who have already read this book have absolutely loved it. Next up is a book that I have talked about extensively because I was lucky enough to receive a copy of this book, and it's one that I'm hoping to read this month. This is The Unspoken Name by A.K. Larkwood. This comes out from Tor on the 11th of February. So, to put it briefly, this book follows a young woman who, when she is 14, is going to be sacrificed as a bride to this terrifying sort of death god by this death cult. And she manages to escape. She has the opportunity to escape, and she runs off, and she kind of rebuilds her life. She becomes an assassin, a kind of assistant to a wizard, and lives her full fantasy life. However, many years later, this death cult catches up with her and she has to confront her past. It looks incredible. I think this is a very highly anticipated book for a lot of you guys, and it's one I cannot wait to read. It looks absolutely phenomenal, and the early reviews that I'm hearing are really great. And the last book that I have for February is The Light of Impossible Stars by Gareth L. Powell. This comes out on the 18th of February from Titan Books. This is the final book in the Embers of War trilogy. I read the Embers of War in 2019 and really enjoyed it. It is such a wonderful adventurous space romp. It reminded me a lot of the spirit of Star Wars. It was like reading a Star Wars adventure. It's nothing like actual Star Wars, it just has that kind of amazing sense of adventure and fun. It has a sentient spaceship, which is like my favorite thing ever. And I am very excited to read this book. I have Fleet of Knives, which is the second book, queued up for reading before this book comes out, and I'm very much looking forward to finishing up this amazing space opera trilogy. So now we're moving on to March, and I have 3 books for March. The first one being The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. This comes out on the 1st of March from Fewell and Friends. I don't know what publisher that is, but they, I believe, are the US publisher. I don't think this has a UK publisher. And this one is one that I recently found out about, and it sounds so fun. So this is basically about a young woman who is going to seduce and marry the king of her nation in order to murder him, which sounds great. It's like villain's romance, which is just like my everything. I'm super excited, and I feel like true villainous villains and like a villainy romance is not something you necessarily see in YA fantasy a lot, and it looks so fun. Next up we have a sci-fi book. This is 16th Watch by Mike Cole. This comes out on the 10th of March from Angry Robot Books. I have only read one book by Mike Cole before, and that was The Armored Saint, which is a novella, and I really enjoyed it. It's a great fantasy, really grim, gritty fantasy book if you're interested in picking that up. So this is a sci-fi book, and this looks really fun for a lot of reasons. First of all, I think he is ex-Coast Guard, and this book is basically Coast Guard in space. So the Coast Guard has to prevent the first lunar war in history, and it features a lifelong search and rescue woman, Coast Guard Captain Jane Oliver, and she's ready for peaceful retirement. However, tragedy strikes and she loses her husband and her plans for the future, and she finds herself thrust into a role that she is just completely unprepared for. So she is at the helm of the Coast Guard's elite SAR-1 lunar unit, and she is the only woman who can prevent the first lunar war in history that will undoubtedly consume the Earth as well. This looks so fun. I really enjoy Mike Cole kind of as a person on Twitter. He and Sam Sykes are just a delight, and I really like the way that he writes his female characters. So this is one I'm definitely looking forward to. It looks really fun. And the last book that I have for March is one I'm very excited for, another sci-fi book, but kind of like an urban sci-fi. This is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, and it comes out on the 26th of March from Orbit Books. This looks amazing, and it looks like an amazing New York story, and I'm 100% here for New York stories. As much as I disliked living there towards the end, I have a lot of affection for New York, and this looks like it's going to be a really great book. So every great city has a soul. Some are as ancient as myths, and others are new and destructive as children. New York City, she's got 6. But every city has a dark side. A rolling ancient evil stirs in the halls of power, threatening to destroy the city and her 6 newborn avatars unless they can come together and stop it once and for all. This sounds so fun. This sounds really great, and I think N.K. Jemisin lives in Brooklyn, I'm pretty sure, and I love, as I say, New York books, but I really love New York books by New Yorkers. This is going to be amazing. It's one I'm so incredibly excited for, despite the fact that I've not actually read any of N.K. Jemisin's other books. I have the entire Inheritance trilogy on my shelf, and I've not picked it up yet because I know I'm going to love it, which makes absolutely no sense. But she's someone that I really adore and respect as an author and as a person, so this is one that I'm going to pick up immediately as soon as my copy comes in. So for April, I actually only have one book, and that comes out on the 30th of April from Wildfire Books. This is Goldilocks by Laura Lamb. This looks amazing. So this book follows a character named Valerie Black, and despite increasing restrictions on the freedoms of women on Earth, she is spearheading the very first all-female mission to a planet in the Goldilocks zone, which is an area of space where conditions are just right for human habitation. So Naomi, who is her surrogate daughter and the ship's botanist, has been waiting her whole life for an opportunity to step out from Valerie's shadow and actually make a difference. However, things go wrong on the ship, and Naomi starts to suspect that someone on board is concealing a terrible secret, and realizes time for life on Earth may be running out faster than they feared. This is like Justine catnip. This sounds absolutely amazing. It sounds so incredibly good. So it's sci-fi, it's female-led and female-written sci-fi, and it involves environmental disasters and the planet being in crisis, the fate of humanity, depending on people going out to colonize space. Oh, this just sounds so incredibly good. I'm so pumped for this. I have only read one of Laura Lamb's books before, and that was False Hearts, which was amazing. I really enjoyed it. It was super weird and absolutely awesome. I adored it. So this is one that I'm just like shaking with excitement to get my hands on. Fingers crossed I can get an early copy of it because I want to just absolutely devour it. So similar to April, there's actually only one book for the month of May. This is one I'm really looking forward to. It is a YA fantasy book. This is Dangerous Remedy by Kat Dunn, and it comes out on the 7th of May from Zephyr Books. So Camille is a revolutionary's daughter, and she leads this band of outcasts saving people from the guillotine. So this latest rescue is not what she seems. So she's no aristocrat, and her dark and disturbing powers mean that both royalists and revolutionaries want her. But who is she and what is she? This sounds wonderful. I am seeing some people over the past few days review this book and talk about this book, and apparently it's just incredible. It looks like so much fun, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. It looks like it's going to be just an absolutely phenomenal read. I love historical fantasy, and I love historical fantasy set during the French Revolution as well. So there are 4 books in June that I'm most looking forward to getting my hands on. The first being Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. This comes out on the 11th of June from Harper Voyager in the UK, and this is the final book in the Daevabad series, which is, I say it's one of my favorites, but I've only read the first one because I've been waiting for this last book to release in order to read Kingdom of Copper, the second book, so I can just dive right in, because apparently, I think from what I've heard, Kingdom of Copper has quite the cliffhanger. So this is one of my favorite series. It's more historical fantasy, and it takes place in sort of, I believe it's 18th century Cairo, and then a sort of fantasy city as well, and it just like, it's amazing. The romance is so good, the world building is so good, it's got lots of good backstabby politics, it's just wonderful. I'm actually planning on rereading City of Brass before I get to Kingdom of Copper and Empire of Gold, because it's just so good. It's so good, and she's the nicest person in the world. Oh, I'm so excited for this. The next book on my list is Mexican Gothic, and this is by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This comes out on the 23rd of June from Joe Fletcher Books. I'm so excited for this. I actually just bought Gods of Jade and Shadow by the same author on the recommendation of one of my friends, and I'm so pumped to read it. Apparently it's just fantastic, and the writing is really good as well. And I won't lie, the thing that first attracted me to this book was definitely that cover. Oh my god, it's so good. It's absolutely amazing. But the description of this book just sounds incredible. So I'm not going to dive too much into the actual description. It's linked below if you're curious, because this is one of those ones I want to go in knowing as little as possible. But apparently this is a mesmerizing feminist reimagining of Gothic fantasy in which a young socialite discovers the haunting secrets of a beautiful old mansion in 1950s Mexico. Oh my god. This looks like it's going to be absolutely incredible. I cannot wait to get my hands on this. It's so, oh my god, it's going to be so good. I'm freaking out slightly. And the next book that I have is The Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water by Zen Cho. This comes out from Tor.com on the 23rd of June. This is another novella, and again, hi, beautiful cover, absolutely amazing. And Zen Cho is not only a super talented writer. I read Sorcerer to the Crown last year, and I actually got the chance to meet her, and she's just a goddamn delight. She is the nicest, funniest person in the world, and if that wasn't going to convince me that I was going to definitely read this book, the actual description of this book sounds so fun. So the first line of the description is, "A bandit walks into a coffee house and it all goes downhill from there," which is like, appeals to me greatly. So our main character, who is a votary of the Order of the Pure Moon, joins up with an eclectic group of thieves, whether they like it or not, in order to protect a sacred object, and finds herself in a far more complicated situation than she ever could have imagined. That's the kind of vague description from a publisher that I really want. This looks so fun, and if it's anything like her writing style in Sorcerer to the Crown, it will definitely have its moments of lightness and it'll have really good banter, but will be an incredibly kind of lush and immersive read. I'm so pumped for this. So my last book for the month of June and for this video is another historical fantasy that takes place during the French Revolution. Like, I'm living my best life here. This is Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. This comes out on the 4th of June from Harper Voyager. So this is one that they've started kind of the early buzz for, and I have seen some industry professionals, so booksellers and agents and stuff, reading this book and just absolutely loving it. So apparently it is Les Mis meets Six of Crows in this page-turning adventure as a young thief finds herself going head-to-head with the leaders of Paris's criminal underground in the wake of the French Revolution. So this is an alternate version of Paris, and the French Revolution has failed, and the city is divided between the merciless royalty and 9 underworld criminal gangs known as the Court of Miracles. So Eponine is a talented cat burglar and a member of the Thieves Guild. Nina's life is midnight robberies, avoiding her father's fists, and watching over her naive adopted sister Cosette. So her younger sister catches the eye of one of the ruthless lords, who is the leader of the Guild of the Flesh, which sounds awful. Nina is caught in a desperate race to keep her younger sister safe, and her vow takes her to the city's dark underbelly to the glittering court of Louis XVII. And it forces her to make a brutal choice: protect her sister and set off a brutal war between the guilds, or forever lose her sister to this awful man. This sounds amazing. I'm so excited. I'm really hoping that I can get, again, an early copy of this book and just blast through it, because this looks like my exact cup of tea. It just looks fantastic. I think it's a debut novel. I'm not 100% sure, which makes me even more excited, because reading debut novels and kind of discovering new authors and new kind of writing talent and everything is like the best, most exciting thing ever. So I cannot wait for all of these books. They look so good. It's going to be an amazing publishing year. So I would love to know in the comments below if you are also excited for these books, if they're in your TBR, if you've not heard of them, if you have books that you are excited for that I didn't mention, definitely let me know. Hopefully I am going to be doing 6 new release videos this year. I'll kind of clump them together in like January, February, March, April, etc., and be able to talk about more new releases, because as I said, I'm totally missing a bunch of them, and there are other books that are coming out that sound absolutely amazing that I had to cut from this list because otherwise this video would be like 10 hours long. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.